Yeah, what's going on?
What's going on? Tyler, what's going on in the world?
I think it's the end times, if I'm honest.
Dumb.
It's feeling like the end times because it's feeling like the end times. Let's not elaborate on why, but it is.
Okay. Let's dive to the Levant.
So since we were last year, ceasefire in Lebanon, yay.
Yeah.
Beirut is no longer being bombed. That's really nice. I'm happy about that. However, Syria is liberated, allegedly.
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 The sign.
I personally don't think liberation is when Israel bombs your country 380 times in a day and the US gets to bomb and Turkey gets to bomb and also Israel invades up until 20 kilometers from Damascus. I feel like an invasion of a country is not liberation.
So what do you what is liberation?
I don't think I mean in the context of Syria, I don't know what type of like a government would be the best, but it's certainly not this. So yeah, HTS, formerly
Okay.
Al-Nusra Front, which was an offshoot of Al-Qaeda, led by Jolani, who was formerly Al-Qaeda and also ISIS, is now the official governing authority of Syria.
What do,
And we're supposed to believe that the fall of the Assad regime automatically means liberation for Syria, which I was just so taken aback and I was so confused when people were like, Syria is liberated. I said, wait, what?
hold up.
Sharia law though. Are we okay with this?
Somehow. I mean,
Why?
It's
Why are we okay with
look,
guys after all
I don't
the
think
years? Like
maybe the issue isn't necessarily Sharia law, it's more the placement of it in
Yeah.
this context.
I don't trust Al Qaeda to implement Sharia law.
Yeah.
And be honest about that.
Because you can implement it incorrectly and then it's
And also there's Christians in Syria, Syria was
Yeah.
kind of the birthplace of Christianity in a lot of ways. So I don't feel like it should be I don't
Yeah.
feel like Muslims should have some kind of superiority and implement that superiority in ruling a country.
okay.
Nah.
Before we get there, can we introduce HTS to
HTS, yeah. Formerly Al Nusra Front, offshoot of Al Qaeda.
what
Now
did they do?
HTS. They've committed like sectarian massacres already against the Christians, the Alawites, the Shias. They had control over Idlib for a long time, which is in the north of Syria, and the problem with like their governance is that they don't seem to be interested in governance. They just want kind of control
Yeah.
because
Rulership.
yeah, like those areas that they had control over were entirely reliant on international humanitarian aid. So I don't know. I like it, and also they implemented Sharia law there, which meant that like women weren't allowed freedom of movement. They had to wear like a scarf, niqab, I think, in a lot of areas, and then also they would kill anyone who questioned them. There was no freedom for journalists. Anyone who was in opposition to them was just taken out. So I really don't think that this is the best group to lead all Syrian people. They don't have a great track record. And I feel like I'm going insane by saying this. And
Yeah.
everyone's just like, no, but Syria is liberated. Shut up. Just have a nice
Yeah.
day. Syria is free.
Okay. Can we let's get into though why HTS all of a sudden are superheroes.
Because it's
On
beneficial
Syria.
to the US,
Okay.
beneficial. And like a lot of people were getting angry because leftists are just so pessimistic and we can't just let people have a nice day and enjoy this, whatever. But ultimately, like, this is not liberation, and people are not gonna, help you to create this bubble that is not reality so that you can just feel comfy and cozy and like everything's sorted and resolved now when it's just not. Unfortunately, like, it's just not. Like, we can't be dishonest about the facts. The facts are that the Assad regime was terrible. I got no love for Assad. I think the imprisonment of so many people was a crime against humanity. I don't like Assad at all, ever. However, just because you take away the bad thing doesn't mean that you're left with a good thing. And I think people need to be realistic about this. We can be happy that Assad is gone while still recognizing that what is left is not better. And just it can't be ideological and like, oh, these are Sunni Muslims, and we didn't like the Alawites, we don't like the Shias, we don't like Iran controlling so this must be great. It's not great. We have to be like fact driven about this, and as bad as Assad was, like HTS is also guilty of imprisoning people arbitrarily without trial, without access to lawyers, where they can't see their family. They've also committed massacres against civilians and carried out sectarian violence. So we can't be naive about this. We can't be idealistic about it.
So maybe we go into just the timeline of December, because there's a gradual progression of how this became suspicious.
Yeah.
And it's a bunch of events leading into each other that makes this what it is.
Yeah.
Do we start with Israel's bombing like earlier in, what was it, last week?
Yeah.
Or do you want to start over there?
Yeah, so I think like they were in Lebanon, they were doing ground invasion, they were unsuccessful. The IDF was dying all the time. They weren't handling it.
Yeah.
They got a ceasefire, which to me was essentially a withdrawal of the IDF from Lebanon because they were being such losers. Yeah. And then once the ceasefire starts, they had been bombing Syria sort of like periodically. Once the ceasefire starts, all of a sudden HTS ramps up and they manage to take over the entirety of Syria. And then, like in the midst of all this chaos, Israel starts invading from the Golan Heights, allegedly for a buffer zone, just to protect their interests or whatever. Only for Netanyahu to come out the next day and go, yeah, we're holding this territory for eternity. And they got all the way, like they got 20 kilometers outside of Damascus. And this is a week after Bezalel Smotrich was on some...
Wait, they got 20 kilometers of like...
outside of Damascus. They got all the way there. 20 kilometers is like from here to town.
Yeah. Damn.
Not great. Yeah, and Bezalel Smotrich, he was talking about how Greater Israel stretches all the way to Syria. And I got so many people being like, no, Israel, they hate occupation.
Is this happening before the rebellion?
No, this is after.
Okay,
this is in the midst of all of this chaos and
yeah. Time space. Okay.
And so many people were responding to me being like, no, I don't think that Israel likes occupying. I don't think they're going to occupy. When have they ever occupied any land? When have they ever used war and instability to take more land? Israel hates territorial expansion. I said, why are we being stupid? Why? All of a sudden, are we just being dumb about this? We're acting like Israel is not an expansionist entity, like the US isn't an imperialist power with imperialist goals.
And imperialist media.
Yeah. All of a sudden, it's like, no, CNN called him a rebel, he's a rebel. I thought we weren't listening to CNN.
Yeah, we were done with like Sky News, but...
No, it's getting so scary.
So what is the, like the leadership of HTS? What is have they established a relationship with Israel yet?
I think they're in talks, but like when people ask, how come you aren't doing anything about Israel bombing, like taking out like airstrikes and taking out the military, invading, why aren't you saying anything? And they were like, we don't want to, we're not gonna, it's fine. It's okay. Leave it. It's just not a priority for them. But I think it's because, they don't define an Islamic state according to the borders of Syria. They define an Islamic state according to what they want the caliphate to be.
What?
The
Yeah, no. I'm saying like...
In a speech that Jelani gave, like before he was rebranded as a rebel.
Yeah.
It was like 2014 or so. In the speech, he says the caliphate, the Islamic,
Yeah.
state, it stretches all the way to Andalusia, which is like Spain, and Rome is part of it, and Iraq is part of it. I said, what?
So what were like articles like, or like news pieces like around that time, 2014, when he was saying this?
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy to see the way that the media switches up. Like if you Google anything about them now, it's just taken over by rebel discourse. But if you use the time filters to say like before 2016 or so, then you'll see like the U.S. State Department and all of the like CNN and everyone being like, yeah, HTS is a terrorist organization. They have committed acts of terror. And then all of a sudden, when it's convenient to the US, bear in mind, like, this is what they did in Afghanistan, where, they were funding the brave Mujahideen. And then when the brave Mujahideen turned into Al Qaeda, then they had to go all over the Middle East and intervene everywhere to take out Al Qaeda. And now, after years and years of the war on terror, after having like destroyed the entirety of the Middle East for the sake of destroying Al Qaeda, we find out that actually Al Qaeda is just rebels. They're just rebels, and they're just liberating Syria, and they're freedom fighters. And they moderate now. They're inclusive.
Yeah. So
What?
are we? I guess where do we go from here? Actually,
Where do we go from here? I don't know. I think that we're in for a period of darkness and violence, and I really thought that like
because there's a deep feeling of despair in people right now. And
yeah, I think it's despair and exhaustion. We've watched 14 months of genocide, and it's impossible for you to watch that level of violence and atrocity without losing your mind or without detaching to some degree, so that you can just survive and not be like so caught up in it that you're completely useless to the cause or to anyone, to even to yourself. And so I think people are exhausted on the one hand. It's also the fact that like we've watched every institution, every traditional structure of authority try to do something about this, and nothing has worked. No boycotting, no protesting, no filling up the streets, no ICJ or arrest warrants or UN resolutions has managed to stop this genocide. And so it really feels like things are only getting worse. It was the genocide in Gaza, the invasion of Lebanon, and now the fall of Syria. And like I worry that Syria will go in the same direction that Libya went in.
Yeah.
Especially now that we hear HTS talking about we're going to implement a free market economy.
What's the state of Libya?
Yeah, like that Libya became a failed state because of that. Because when you privatize like natural resources and state resources, it goes to whoever has the most power and whoever can maintain and capitalize on the situation. And so in the situation of Libya, like all of the resources fall into the hands of militias and warlords. And the other thing was like privatization, and like it doesn't actually diversify. Libya had to become like entirely about oil production. Whereas before, like they didn't rely as heavily on importing as they do now.
Yeah, they had a phenomenal education system.
Humanitarian crisis, not to mention like open slave markets, because there's no central governance. And maybe Syria is different in the sense that like HTS will now be the governing authority, and maybe they have structures in place. But like I was saying to someone in the week that the important thing after revolution, after liberation, whatever it is, there has to be like a transition of power. If you want to claim that Syria has been liberated, then there needs to be governance structures in place so that the people who have allegedly been liberated have services provided to them by the government. Like I was saying earlier, the areas that HTS has previously controlled, they haven't done any governance. they came out with some like bullshit about how they use the computer to get people their IDs, whereas like in Damascus you must stand in a line. I said, don't do nonsense, my bro. You can't even feed the people. You're relying on NGOs and international aid organizations because they aren't interested in governance, they're interested in control. And so there's so much to be pessimistic about, and so much to not even pessimistic, but to be just realistic about when it comes to who this group is, who like what their ideology is, what they've done before, and to just go, nah, they're different now. CNN said it's naive and it's silly. And I don't know if it comes from the exhaustion from having all of this happen constantly and feeling like there's just no end in sight and just having to continue and continue. But unfortunately, like you have to confront reality and like practice a little bit of existential courage, you know. This is what it is. The situation doesn't change because your feelings about it are, you know, different.
Well, and maybe they're also preying on that feeling of despair.
Yeah.
That like, okay, they'll eat anything right
Yeah.
now, to where we are like people are willing to just accept tiny victories.
Yeah. And there was this like older man that I spoke to, like, you know, maybe our parents' age vibes. And he was like, oh, these people fucking stupid. Did we not do this, Kakoridi?
Yeah.
You know, like he was referring to apartheid and being like, we also threw our hands up and went, yay, liberation. But ultimately, all the end of apartheid was just like a deep breath, just a sigh of relief.
More free market economy.
But yeah, nothing tangibly changed in our country.
Yeah. I mean, like,
It was just neocolonialism, but with different clothes.
yeah, with different clothes, with money.
Yeah.
No, it's the less blatant. So if let me go to my note.
Yeah. Oops.
Oopsie. You said you wanted to like speak about how we spoke already about like removing the bad won't necessarily make it good. But from there, we covered like how the plight of the oppressed is never covered really by mainstream media, which makes this whole situation sus.
Yeah.
Can you give us some, like, I guess, insight into Jelani is and what exactly? Like, I don't think people even have an opinion on
Well,
on him.
he was the Amir of a province in Iraq
Leader.
as part of Al Qaeda. He was also a member of ISIS. Al-Baghdadi, the former leader of ISIS, helped form Al-Nusra Front, which is now HTS. Homeboy is not great. Like, really, not great.
And we'll be hearing a lot about him in the coming weeks.
Yeah, I mean, they're trying to portray him like he's Zelensky or something. It's really weird. They got him in the same, like, Zara X Zelensky uniform as well. You know, the, like, it's kind of military fatigues, but you bought it at H&M. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's the Zelensky trip.
So,
I don't know what it is. It's Gorko. I don't know.
isn't that like an interesting Western move to like, okay, let me give you
cut
some
your
fake
beard, Abichi. Cut
let
your
me give you
beard
some fake influences
so that we can tell the
to-
people you are moderate. If you just, not so long, the beard needs to be shorter.
like there's
He
also like a
still
space
speaks about Sharia law and like implementing Sharia law though.
but they don't implement Sharia law,
They've implemented Sharia law in the regions that they control.
a style of Sharia law. Like
Yeah, like not actual, by the
does
book.
Saudi do Sharia law?
To an extent, yeah, but also not.
But I mean, do they claim that?
Yeah.
Exactly.
No, I guess.
Like it's made up, bro. Like,
But it really feels like, 1984, where, the past is erased and 2 + 2 = 5 because
2 + 2 can't equal potato here. Like,
it's just wild how the mainstream media's narrative just completely switched. I mean, we've experienced an entire year of watching like college students at Ivy League universities getting called anti-Semitic terrorists. Then the former leader of Al Qaeda is standing here in front of you. You go, oh, he's a rebel.
Bah.
How does
All
that
of a sudden.
work? How is this working? Like, I remember being in grade 5, getting called a terrorist for the first time, and just being so like taken aback by,
Oh,
I
like,
knew I didn't know what's going on in
what's a
Iraq or
terrorist?
Afghanistan.
Yeah.
I had nothing to do with that.
Yeah.
I just knew we didn't like George Bush. That was it.
Yeah.
But we spent like so many years having to defend Islam and go, no, we know nothing about ISIS. We're not involved with that.
Yeah.
Then only to be told, like, actually, Al Qaeda is a liberating force.
Since when are you on our side? Like, I don't if the media is saying like they're implementing Sharia law, that's not for CNN to decide or for some front to decide that this is Sharia law. It's in the law, that in the way it's put out,
Yeah.
because you can call it's like fake Nikes or
Yeah.
like, do you know what I mean? Like,
And if it was like real Sharia law, and if they were actual Salafists are people who believe in like the Quran, the Hadith, and the Sahaba, and the example of the Sahaba, if they were really following that, then they would have done what Sayyidina Umar did, which was to ensure that non-Muslims were protected under his rule, which they haven't done, considering that they've massacred like Christians. And you know what? Like, it really does feel like 1984. And it makes me feel like I'm being gaslit all the time because I've read the human rights reports. Like, I know that they for sure did behead a 13-year-old child. I actually read this report. They beheaded a 13-year-old child, and they said he was a fighter. Turns out he was a Palestinian refugee, and he was for the Palestinian resistance.
well, this is the move to like divide us from and non-Muslims from like supporting the resistance, is where you're going to find a lot of like Muslim people are going to support Syria, this current regime, and inevitably when atrocities occur, now you've already selected which side you are on, and that now paints you with a brush to someone else who's maybe not as educated, and it creates division in the resistance. Like, why? It's a ploy.
Yeah, it's like
It's a ploy, and
the Iran backed, they Shias, we don't like them, we Sunni.
yeah, like I'm happy for the families.
Yeah,
in
for sure.
Syria. Like, good for, like, I'm very happy for
Happy
them.
that prisoners have been released after months, if not years, of torture. Glad.
But we need to see, like, we need to be steps ahead here in thinking.
Yeah.
We need to, like, and we've seen it before.
Because
so,
what
like,
happens when you say Syria is liberated? What happens when you say that? You walk away from it and you go, nah, they're fine now.
yeah,
They're
you-
fine now.
you
Like,
get
we don't
that
have to worry
positive
about it
dopamine
anymore.
from that also.
Yeah.
Like, things are going.
When this is not the case, if the Palestinian Authority was given like the governance over Gaza, and the Israeli occupation moved out, and there was no more blockade, or maybe there was still a blockade and all of those things, but now the Palestinian Authority was the one handling all of that, would that be liberation? Would we go, oh yeah, it's done? Or would we consider the fact that the Palestinian Authority has been completely and entirely captured by the State of Israel? And in this situation, no group in Syria works on their own. Like, okay, maybe a few. But for the most part, like, this HTS is not, it's not, it's not a popular uprising and a group that comes out of that. It's a group that was funded by the US and Israel and Qatar and the Gulf states. And everyone has like their own like stake in Syria. If it's Turkey in the north and Israel in the south, like, there are all of these different actors like trying to take what they want out of Syria. And like, instead of explaining all the like complicated political theory and Machiavellianism about
Go
it,
for it.
I mean, Machiavelli basically said that like you use instability to your advantage. You capitalize on it and you use it to use it as an opportunity. Chaos is a ladder, And that's been the doctrine of the US for the longest time. That's been their foreign policy. And as much as I want to like celebrate the fall of Assad or whatever and be happy for people that their families are free and that they can return to their homes and all of those things, like I'm glad for that. But if they use this instability as like just another tool to further their imperialist expansion, and like I mean, Israel has invaded up until 20 kilometers outside of Damascus. That's significant.
Yeah, they're coming.
Yeah, and the US is
It's not
bombing
getting the
ISIS
level of-
allegedly. I mean, the CIA funds one group, the Pentagon funds another group. The group ends up, those groups end up fighting each other, also that they can create this instability. Chaos is Aladdin, using it like that so that they can steal the oil. Donald Trump, when he was president, he literally said, "We're in Syria to steal the oil." And now we must believe that like all of that is done because Jelani is gonna do what? They haven't said anything about Israel invading.
Yeah, this is happening while people are like blowing their streamers and
Yeah.
are like, wee.
So what do we want? Like you ask, like what does liberation look like? I don't think it looks like Syria being torn apart. I don't think it looks like Syria turning into Libya, or I don't think it's the US still occupying a third of Syria and possibly gaining more territory, because all this instability allows everyone to just gain more and maintain control and consolidate their power in whichever areas. I don't think that that's to the benefit of the Syrian people, first of all. And most importantly, it's not to the benefit of the Syrian people, because the Syrian people are not just Sunni. There are other groups, and like I don't really care about people's sectarian ideologies. I don't care what you think
they're
of
use
like
it against us now.
like I don't care what you think of Sunnis or Shias or whatever. Like it's not my business what
Yeah.
your stupid ideological beliefs are. Ultimately, at the end of the day, nobody should die for an idea that they have, and that is what groups like this, like that's the threat that they pose. That they don't. I mean, I watched a bus driver who had a picture of Nasrullah in his bus get pulled out of the bus and executed in the street, and at the hands of the rebels.
The rebels.
Is this good? Like, I don't think so.
Yeah, that's not our way.
No, it's really not.
It's not our way, and this is a bit of a turning point where there's opportunity for us to be infected.
Yeah.
It's an opportunity for people to start seeing us as like power hungry. I'm very worried about it.
Yeah. What happens when they've already started doing public executions, but what happens when they start carrying out sectarian violence and implementing Sharia law and preventing women from doing whatever? They're not all the people that talk about like the women in Iran. Are they going to open their beak about it? Are they going to do something? Or are they going to keep saying, no, Syria is liberated?
Bro, this is the moment where that like freeing yourself from a Western ideology, it points out to itself. It's why I spoke about the Muslim algorithm being like people being boisterously proving themselves right.
And that's also what I worry about, is that this pushes people more into the positions that they've already staked out for themselves. Like it pushes them further into whatever ideology they previously believed in. Whereas it's kind of like, I don't know, it's had the opposite effect on me. Like I've started to doubt everything, and before I made came to the conclusion that HTS is bad, I was like, wait, let me just double check. Let me just double check. Because it really felt like I was getting gaslit by the entire internet. And I was like, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they are different. Maybe they're moderate now. And listening to a lot of like analysts from the region, they have the same like apprehensive way of speaking about it, where it's like, I hope it's for the best, but I don't think it is.
Well, and that's the difference in how you find yourself where you are. You aren't, your opinion isn't based on what was fed to you.
And it's not ideological either.
Yeah, you went out of your way to go like find out what was the wave.
Yeah.
Like what is the right wave?
And I hope that if anything beneficial comes out of this, or maybe like the thing that people should try to focus on now in this time where we all feel so hopeless and in despair, we have to seek knowledge, we have to make sure that we're strong in what we know, and we try to be curious as often as possible, and to be skeptical about things and to ask questions, because I don't think we can afford to be lazy.
Yeah.
I think like I told you about this before, the study fast, train, fight. I really like that slogan.
Yeah.
It comes from like the Black liberationist movement. They commemorated political prisoners who had been murdered in jail. They commemorated them during Black August, where it was the whole month you were encouraged to study fast, train, fight. And you study the history of the cause, your history, the history of the struggle. You fast from anything that may tempt you and may distract you. You train like physically, mentally, and you fight, as in taking part in radical revolutionary actions. And what I love about that is that it wasn't an invite only to the leadership of the liberationist movement. It was an invitation to everyone that wants to participate in liberation. And I think that the point that we're at now, where like things are moving, but not in the direction that we want,
Yeah.
in more in
we
a
need it to.
scattered sort of way, where we can't see like a clear way forward. I think it's important to just hold on to what we can control, and that's study fast, train, fight. We can at least control that for our own lives.
And how we also like have a moment here to like not give up
Yeah,
on Gaza.
certainly not. It's an obligation that you have now. Like, it doesn't matter what you really like feel about it. I think the fact that we've watched crimes against humanity carried out in Gaza, we're obliged to do something, to do everything that we can, for the sake of like the soul of our species. I feel, because I think like we're losing our humanity by allowing this to continue, by allowing a group of our species to be annihilated in the most violent ways, and for allowing this violence to spread to other parts of the world. The tech that Israel uses, the surveillance, the repressive tactics that they use, it's being spread throughout the world, and more repressive regimes and governments are using it to oppress their people. And yeah, like we're obliged. We are.
We're obliged to do what we can.
Yeah. And like doing what you can, sometimes it feels like, you don't know what to do, whatever, but doing what you can really just means like thinking about what you're already good at and how that can help other people. Like, just think about things in a less like selfish and self-serving way. Think about it in the sense that what skills do I have that could be of benefit to the collective?
And I guess it comes in many forms. It's like you can be an artisan and
Yeah.
like build a table for an organization doing
Yeah.
donations. It's very simple, but very much beyond what we are like framed to
Yeah.
or the framing of how we are meant to usually think, which is like where's our next coin
Yeah.
coming out.
Exactly.
Ugh, rough. Yeah,
Hold
that's the
through,
whole thing. But yeah, hold on there.
Yep.
On there. And thank you, everyone. We still
Donate.
oh yeah, and we still love you and stuff.